Thank you.
Really well done.
Which aspect? Like that no one shows up, or that the people who do show up probably can't show up at a different time?
The part about all the things you've already covered.
That everybody's saying, "How about if you do this?" No, we've already done a lot of the things to save money like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you were watching.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the Open Space and Ecology meeting on Wednesday, November 20th. Meeting is now in session. So one of the items that is not on the agenda is our schedule from now until January. Did we discuss that at the last meeting, I think?
I remember that we did, and we decided, well, you decided, not me, to go with December 4th and December 11th. And the December 4th, you would not be in this room because Parks and Recreation is in this room.
Right.
And then, so you'd probably be upstairs with Parks and Recreation or in the large conference room unless there's conflicts. And then on December 11th, you would be here, and then you were going to take the rest of December off and hopefully come back just for your regular meeting in January.
Right. Okay.
That was, and just to let you know, the City Council extended the comment period through January 24th at 1 p.m.
Okay.
Michelle,
yes.
I won't be able to make the December 4th meeting.
Okay. That'll be probably more like a study session in the room. So.
Right. I mean, we're going to send Terry more comments, hopefully by Friday of this week. So we'll have more back hopefully by the December 4th.
Okay. So just before we adjourn tonight, we should have a quick discussion of how we're going to finish the rest of the work and in what format. Like, do we need to break up into subcommittees to finish reviewing all of the comments so that we get everything done? Because well, we can discuss it at that time, but I don't think people have the appetite to do weekly meetings for the rest of until January or the time.
And how would branching off into subcommittees not mean additional meetings?
It would just mean that, I don't know.
I'll be lonely.
People not in the subcommittee would beg to differ.
But I would be lonely.
You would be lonely. You could come, Stuart, and discuss anything you want.
Okay.
Anyway, let's put that down further down the list. So maybe after review of comments or something.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can we add that to the agenda so that?
Yep.
Okay. So is there a move to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second. Okay. Oral communications for items not on the agenda? Okay. And then acknowledgement of Mary's retirement. Do we want to wait till Glenn's here to discuss that? So let's move that further down.
And just to let you know, the City Council also approved the zip car contract.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
So there will be 2 zip cars in town at some point in my lifetime. One will be located at the Park and Ride off of Bayshore, and the other one will be located in the first spot in the police department parking lot, outside the fence, not inside the fence, because then no one would actually get to it. The reason those 2 were chosen, one is on the bus line 292 line, the other one is on the shuttle, and more available for people who are in the park. Hopefully that will allow people to take the public transportation into Brisbane and then have a car available if they need to do some errands during the day.
Excellent. Thank you for letting us know that, Stuart. So that's the zip car that we discussed. I'm really happy about that. When?
How many public parking places are outside at the police station, not counting the handicap ones?
I think 3 or 4. Not very many people stop by the police station at any given time.
Right.
Stuart, do you know when they'll be available?
No, they're still trying to figure out to do it in such a way that it works well with the publicity. So
Okay.
They're not quite sure yet.
So you'll keep us posted on that too?
I will.
Okay. Well, since Glenn's here, we can do the part about acknowledging Mary's contribution and her...
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. I'm glad you're here.
Yep.
Yeah, better to be here than...
I was writing comments and so...
The ink's still wet, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So we are at the part where we were going to talk about acknowledging Mary's retirement.
Say about that.
Yes, that's why we were going to wait for you.
Okay. So I'm planning to see Mary this weekend. I was planning to see her last weekend. That didn't work, but I think we're going to get together this weekend. And what I suggest is that I actually ask her what would she really like, because she's really into plant identification, and there may be a book. Some of those books are pretty pricey, so she may not be able to afford it. And I'm not entirely sure what to get, because I'm not entirely sure what she has. So I really think that would be the best way to go myself.
I think that's brilliant, yeah.
So there's a wonderful series of plant ID books. I think it's either a UC extension course, a 2-book set, or City College. I'm not sure. I have them.
She is probably familiar with what she wants, and that's why I would like to ask her, because
Okay.
it's pretty specialized stuff, and
She may not
she
know
has
about
some of
those
it.
too. That's all.
Yeah, okay, but she won't be surprised, and she knows. She's been on this committee long enough to know that we'll recognize her, and so I think it might as well be something that she would really like to have. So I will talk to her and report on what I hear at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And if necessary, I will just get something out of her.
Okay, because there is just tell her, would you rather have something you want or something you don't want? Because you're going to get something.
She is pretty practical, so I think that she'll be receptive to that. And, if she's totally not, then what will I do?
Then we'll just do something else.
Then it's time for threats. I don't know, but I'll get her to tell us something. I'll tell her we will do something, and so
Yeah.
she needs to.
And there is a new Jepson's coming out with a new.
Well, the Jetsons is one of the things that she may want, but I think that costs, I think we could swing it with 7 of us. I think that's about, or 6 of us. I think it's about $100.
Yeah.
So let me see if that's one. I got her a used one a few years ago, but it's 1993.
There's a lot of changes in
Yeah.
the new one, and a lot of the changes, some of them are definitely changes on plants that are native to San Bruno Mountain.
What's it
Okay, so
called?
that might be the thing.
Jepson's manual.
Jepson's, okay.
Yeah. So, the one that I got her was just a personal gift, and it was used, and I think the date was 1993, so she
Yeah.
doesn't have the current one, I'm pretty sure.
So, okay, I think that's a great idea, and you can report back at the regular meeting in December or the December 4th meeting. We have 2 coming up in December, so either one.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not sure I'll be attending both of those because of finals week, basically. So I plan on being here on the 4th. I'm not sure about the regular meeting.
Okay. That's good, because Kima's not going to be here on the 4th, and then so then we'll still have a...
I'm going to only be here on one of them, so I can make the 4th the one not.
Okay.
Or make it, just tell me which one you want me at. I can only make one.
Okay. All right. So let's go on with where we left off with the review of comments from last time, now that Sean is here, because some of the questions we had, Sean, were around some of the comments that you had made. And where we left off was on geologies and soil 4E. And we were at page... I think it was comment, did you say?
I have E34, which kind of relates to
E34,
E27.
yeah. Okay.
We just finished 27.
Okay. And
Do you know what the comment number is?
the comment number, well, it was for page 4-E34, and the comment was, it appears, did you get last time's,
This is the one, right?
I think I
Yeah,
might
this
have
one.
copies of it. Hang on.
The one from last time.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, but I'm not...
I think it's,
You have
Oh, is it in
do you have
this
any
one?
clean copies of this?
Yeah, the report makes
Oh.
Here.
makes a lot of comment about
Thank you.
corrosive soils.
yeah, speaking to the microphone.
The report makes a lot of comments about corrosive soils, yet there's no pH study of the soils on site. And so the comment was pertained to that.
Okay.
What are the pH levels of the corrosive soils mentioned in 4E-4?
Okay. Then the next one is for 4E-36, once appropriately designed and subsequently constructed in accordance. And Terry Rivas said, this quote relates to acceptable levels of seismic risk. The discussion on page 4E-37 isn't inconsistent with the quote.
Except that the table on 4E-4 says that the intensity values for the site fall under 9 and 10, and that there are no recognized construction methods to protect from damage on a major earthquake under those levels of 9 and 10, according to the chart submitted in the EIR.
So, can we correct that question to reflect that?
E36?
Okay, and the next one is E40. The statement in the conclusion that, the statement in the conclusion that with the inclusion of mitigation measures for E2A and for impacts related to strong seismic ground shaking associated with the project site development would be reduced to less than significant levels. This should be stated to be significant and unavoidable. And what they're saying is that Terry's saying this appears to be an unsupported opinion. So how would you support that statement?
By using table 4E-4 on page 4E-21. Because according to the seismic intensity schedule on page 4E-21, the level of intensity based on the soil types on site would pretty much guarantee that everything constructed falls down. And that's in the in the EIR.
And you said page 4E2. Okay, here it is. So all that table is the intensity scale.
Right.
So,
But if you read the description of the intensity scale as to what happens in an event, given the soil structure type for the site, the document reads on 4E-21, damage is considerable in specially designed structures. Well-designed frame structures are thrown out of plumb. It's great in substantial buildings with partial collapse. Buildings are shifted off foundations. Ground is cracked conspicuously. Underground pipes are broken, and that's if it's intensity value 9. If it's intensity value 10, some well-built wooden structures are destroyed. Most masonry and frame structures are destroyed with foundations. Ground badly cracked, rails bent, landslides considerable from riverbanks and steep slopes, shifted sand and mud, water splashed over banks. Given the report of the bearing soils on site with the unconsolidated fill, the bay sands over bay mud, and the water table, liquefaction is almost guaranteed.
So where are these mitigation measures that they're talking about will solve this problem?
On page E40.
E40, okay.
So we go forward to E40.
So the mitigation measure does not take into account what the chart on 4E-21 states.
For E2A and 2B. I guess it's on the page before it. Here we go. These two.
So they're talking about a post-earthquake evaluation. I don't see how a post-earthquake evaluation will solve the problems generated by an earthquake. All it will do is identify what failed and why. Because given the modified Mercalli intensity scale on 4E-21, that chart is based on the soil type on site, and it looks pretty damaging.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't build out there myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't find the exact reference, but I remember being struck by something along these lines when I was reading it, of the 66% probability of a 6.7 or greater. And then, somehow that was filtering through my mind with the soil type E and the potential intensity description to think. And I remember thinking, ouch. But I can't find the exact
I think it's earlier in the report.
bit of information that all fed into me going, ouch, and scary.
They talk about the probability of a major quake on the Hayward Fault and a quake on the San Andreas.
Yeah.
So they do give percentages in the report.
Right, and on page 4E37, right on the first sentence, the project site would likely experience at least one major earthquake, M is 6.7 or higher within the next 20 years.
Right.
So maybe what we should say is, in view of parts blah, blah, and blah of the DEIR, and the high probability of a 6.7 or greater earthquake, the finding of less than significant impact seems inconsistent with other things stated in the DEIR. So we're saying the same thing, but in more CEQA-type language.
Fine.
So I think we should reword it to say that.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to give this back
Yeah.
to you.
Okay. So the next page, we go down to comment page 4, or E-43. It's cold. Although, okay, his comment on that, this was the one about, although mitigation measures for A and 4.E-4A and B will incorporate factors for static dynamic conditions, Brisbane General Plan Policy, and California Building Code requirements. There is a lack of incorporation of the CA Seismic Hazard Mapping Act, and this should be included. And Terry is saying this state regulation is discussed in this section. Mapping is not yet available for Brisbane. The DEIR cannot include something that does not yet exist.
Right, but they're making judgments based on unknowns. So even though the California Seismic Hazard Mapping Act has not been initiated for the site, they're making pronouncements that their mitigation measures will solve problems that they don't even know the extent of.
Yeah, that is a catch-22.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we best address that issue?
I'm just stating that the conclusion of mitigation measures 4E-4A and 4E-4B are in question because the site has not yet been mapped.
It seems like it should satisfy the CEQA-type language.
Okay. Okay. Then the next one is 4E-45. Heavy tamping is not addressed in the noise section of the document, yet only periodic pile driving. Therefore, this should be addressed and mitigated. And he writes, this comment would be more effective if it referred to a specific issue page in the noise chapter.
Oh, in the noise chapter.
I think actually what the comment was really referring to is, would the heavy temping create I wouldn't say a seismic event, but would it create a small seismic event that would create localized shaking that would impact this area?
Right.
I think that's what you were. I think that's
and
what you.
Noise level also, because they don't address the methodology for the tamping, and
Okay.
so
the noise we should put in there. We should move into the noise section then.
okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I
If
think
that's what the issue is.
The noise section.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
should double check and get there.
Right, because I am addressing the noise
Okay.
pollution.
Then it should be in the noise.
Yeah, that can be. I'm comfortable moving it to the noise section.
Okay. The topographical map that this is 4E-3. The topographical map that displays 10 to 50 feet is not flat to the lay person. It would be best to describe the project site by height and not through adjectives. And Terry's comment is, unsure what specifically this is referring to. Topo map, figure 4E-2, information is supported with understandable text. Elevation is a standard term used to describe the height of landforms.
Natalie and I have worked on this a little bit because my original comment was the majority of the site being flat or gently sloping towards the bay is incorrect, as noted by the topographical map on 4E-5, which shows an average elevation of 10 feet above sea level on the western portion and an elevation between 10 and 50 feet above sea level on the bay side of the project. The visual inspection will confirm that this is the case. So, which is substantially different than the comment that was submitted to Terry. But I think Natalie and I have already kind of worked through that one, I think.
We were working on what it was 4E50, was that right?
Yeah.
And then I removed 4E11 for you.
Yeah.
The one right below it. But we can work on this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Because my original comment had specifics about, referring to the topographical map.
Okay. So what's the action on this one?
Table it.
You're going to work on that with her, Barbara? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. 4E-11, groundwater zones should be included on the map on 4E5 to show the depth of the water table and water-bearing sediments with respect to land topography.
I asked Natalie to remove this one because Mary felt that the map that I was asking them to refer to was not a valid map. It was not an accurate representation of what's going on underneath the baylands. So I thought, let's not refer to it if it's not right.
Do we have somewhere where we state that the map is not accurate?
I believe Mary did say something to that effect in her comments, maybe? No?
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah.
Can we make a note that we make sure that that was noted? That the map is not an accurate representation? I want to make sure that this does get included somewhere.
Or that it may be misrepresented as an accurate representation. From what I remember, what Mary said, nobody is entirely sure what's under there. So I would be more comfortable with saying it was a case of maybe misleading certainty about the water table, water-bearing sediments, and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is in the last, it's 4E-40. In the last paragraph, it is stated that the potential for liquefaction may be present. We recommend this wording because the presence of liquefaction has been discovered.
Did we skip 33 and 36, or were those already done?
There were no comments on those.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Ooh.
They were just fine the way they were.
Okay.
Which is why we're skipping down to the liquefaction one. we recommend this wording: because the presence of liquefaction has been discovered at this site. This is due to the evidence in map on page 4E-29. And what his comment was liquefaction is the result of seismic forces on saturated soil. The suggested revision doesn't make sense in that context. The presence of liquefaction potential is suspected. So we should
I don't
say,
understand that.
Okay.
I mean, because it seems to me clearly that the
Potential for liquefaction is present. I mean, it's not under a condition of liquefaction at the moment. I grant you that, but
the DEIR says it is, and I think what Terry's saying is the DEIR already says the potential for liquefaction is present. I move we accept Terry's comment on that.
And change the wording?
No, I think we should just strike the comment because they say potential for liquefaction may be present. It is,
Isn't may rather weak?
My original comment was to have it changed to the potential for liquefaction is present. That was my original comment, not what was.
Then let's change it to that.
What's here.
Oh, all right, instead of maybe?
Yeah, because there's no baby about it.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. E40.
Did you get that, Natalie?
Yeah. E44. Investigation of slope stability does not ensure slope stability. Therefore, the results of the investigation should lead to development of mitigation measures. And his comment is, 1, the purpose of investigating slope stability is to inform engineers as to the safest design. A request for details regarding what future investigations are expected to show might be appropriate. In other words, we want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we should incorporate, I think, his comment there.
Yeah, I mean, there's two issues with this. One is this is not the comment I submitted. The comment I submitted was that therefore complying should be prevented. How does the performing of geological investigations prevent soil erosion? Please rework this statement in the DIR to avoid false correlation. It was basically my original. What you're saying is valid, Michelle, too, and probably also deserves a comment. But my original comment was basically a language comment. In the original statement as written in the DIR is like a if A then B statement, but it is connecting two things that are not.
They should not be connected.
Yeah.
So the
a process question at this point. We've made written comments and oral comments, and the oral comments obviously are being taken down by you and summarized, and I think that's fine, but I'm a little bit confused as to why, when written comments have been submitted and more or less accepted by the committee, why can't we just send those to Terry? Because this is kind of like a game of telephone. And I realize that some of that's unavoidable in the case of oral comments, that you're sitting there trying to write stuff down. But I think where the comments are in writing and somebody has thought about how to craft the language, it might just save everybody a whole lot of trouble if those comments were sent directly to him, so that we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now, which is trying to reconstruct the original language, because the response to the comment is on different language. It's just getting really confusing. And so I would like to request that in the case of written comments, that they just, if they've been accepted by the committee in the first place, that they should just go as written.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So there's two issues here. One, to change the language back to the original and resubmit it again, and then submit a second comment based on his comment, which actually is a really good idea, and that's request details regarding what future investigations are expected to show regarding the slope stability. Okay. Then the next one, has soil been checked to ensure that it is clean prior to using this dirt on site? The
dirt. 4E.
Yeah, 4E1. The mitigation for this should include testing for other hazardous materials it may contain. And then he writes, not sure what this comment is referring to on this page. Clarify whether it is referring to past fills.
Okay, so
I believe it's referring to the dirt that they're going to bring.
on top. I'm on the page.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, there's all kinds of dirt on this page, and it's not clear what kind Mary meant, but it could be the demolition rubble that's referred to in the first paragraph under landform history. It could be the landfill itself. I don't think it can be referring to that. And it could also be referring to the soil cap. The landfill is obviously not clean, so I think we can exclude that. So I think it must have meant demolition rubble and the cap.
I think let's just assume it refers to all of 3 soils that need to be tested, because even the soil that's in place with dirt that might be used on site.
I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense in the case of the landfill. That's obviously not clean. I think he's talking about, or Mary was talking about, additional soil that was put in. The soil that was put over the landfill and the demolition waste from the earthquake.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to include the landfill itself in that.
And it should also include the newly imported soils from Ryan Construction's stockpiling, because that's a considerable volume of soil.
Yeah, I think it's referring to the last paragraph.
Yeah.
Clean soil, there it is.
Right.
Right.
So that's the soil cap.
Although it's not an engineered cap, it's just a stockpile.
They refer to it here as the soil cap.
But
So
has a soil cap has not yet been installed.
they refer to it here as the soil cap, so that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
That's not the final clay cap because the landfill isn't closed. This is just the dirt that's been sort of put over the top.
Anywhere in heights of 1 to 39 feet. Okay. So we're going to clarify that one, right? Okay. Then the next one.
Are we on a new?
I think we
killed it.
okay. So now we can start on tonight's ones, right? That's in tonight's packet. Okay, and that starts on, are we still in 4E? Yes, we are. It's still in 4E. So now we're in Mary's comments on 4E. Okay. This is on 4E-7, and Mary's, she says, see report referenced above. Previous investigations were also done before the recent addition of very large amounts of material on top of the landfill and other areas. And he's saying it's not clear what report the commenter is referencing. Burns and McDonald?
What document are we on right now? This one?
No, the one that Natalie gave tonight should be
Here.
here.
And so that's on page 4E7.
So apparently they maybe just couldn't find a reference.
So we don't know which report Mary was referencing that she's mentioning above, because she mentions the Burns and McDonald stratigraphy. She mentions overview of project sites hydrologies, and she also mentions the use of geotechnical investigations. So she mentions 3 reports above. So which one do you think it is?
Well, it could be, they could all be, she could be referencing the same report for all 3 of those things. And I suggest, do we have her comments? Did she include a bibliography at the end of her comments on this?
Yeah, I think Mary did type comments. If we can't find it in her typed comments, is it allowed to send her an email, just ask her to clarify, so that we can make the most out of her work?
Could probably also put it up with a Google search.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't be that hard to do.
Unless MATEC and AMAC.
The Burns and McDonald study identified on page 4E-7, the stratigraphic terminology study, is very vague. It just talks about the north and south. It doesn't talk about the east or west portion of the property. They give the impression that the cross-sectional diagram that they've placed in the EIR is indicative of the site, when in case it probably is not.
Could we add that as a comment as well, because I think that is relevant.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So moving on. The next one that there was a comment about is E4142. For many years, consultants for the landowner have argued that bay mud is relatively impermeable layer that prevents contamination in the fill from reaching the aquifers. What can be done to prevent cross-contamination? And his comment was, this impact and mitigation is addressing landslide potential.
Nope.
Huh?
Yeah, that's weird. This comment might be more effective as a general geology section comment or in the hazard section under groundwater.
I don't understand what he's talking about.
Okay, so let's just figure it out real quick. Mary's comments, this is listed as being 41, E41 and 42. Oh. This might just be mislabeled because,
Maybe she got the page wrong or something?
that's possible.
Although 4E-41 states that placement of engineered fill may cause underlying bay mud to fail.
That's true.
That's in the EIR.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's impact 4E-4.
Okay. So maybe the thing is to reword the comment to talk about potential for failure of the bay mud permitting contamination to reach
The aquifers. I think
But
that.
it still seems like maybe that should be in the hazard section or the geology section. I'm not sure it really belongs in this section.
I think what she might be talking about,
Well, we are in the geology section, so.
Or, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess so. But
which
he's
makes-
talking about the general geology section
Okay.
rather than in the landslide section.
Yeah.
okay, so can I think I might know what, if the bay mud fails, even though many consultants for the landowner has argued that the bay mud is a relatively impermeable layer that prevents contamination in the fill from reaching the aquifers, if this bay mud, which is a relatively impermeable layer, does fail, then what is being done to prevent cross-contamination from the landfill into the aquifer?
Yeah, but there's still the section where should that comment be located?
Because this, would the project expose people or structures to potential substantial adverse effects from landslides? Oh, I see what you mean. So where does that comment go? Well, there's definitely a comment, and it should...
Well, I feel like it belongs in 4E, but I don't know that we need to attach it to a page because I don't think the DEIR ever addresses that.
Right. So it's a general 4E comment under soils, and it should also probably be mentioned under hazardous materials, because if the bay mud fails, then the aquifer would be exposed to contamination from the landfill.
So maybe also included could be a reference to the potential for failure on page 4E41, since that's, I don't remember if that the potential for failure is considered elsewhere, but we do see it there.
Definitely here, yeah.
Yeah.
You got that? Good. Okay. Moving right along. On the next, we are now moving to section 4H, water and hydrology. 4H21. What impact does the project have on the hydrology of the existing site? And his comment was, consider making this more specific comment. Water quality issues during storm events or permeability. Hydrology is a broad topic. 4H21.
Mm-hmm.
Seem to have that.
I skipped, we started with 4H, surface water hydrology and water quality. On the very next page after where we were. This is in tonight's new comment.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, you got the page.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay. And on 4H21.
This was originally one of my questions.
Yeah. And so I guess the thing would be, what impact does the project have on the hydrology of the existing site? Please be specific about water quality during storm events. Please be specific about permeability. Please be specific about flow patterns, etc. So in other words, this, what impact does the project have on the hydrology of the existing site? That should be maybe 3 questions. What impact does the project have on the water quality during a storm event? Like today it was horrible. What? Yes.
Just a process issue. Maybe we should just strike this for right now because we're going to be going over section, I think it's section, is it section O, or what section is it?
It's section...
Oh, water quality, okay.
O is utilities and water supply.
So where is the water quality section?
That would be the one we're in.
H.
But we had some other comments on that, didn't we?
Yeah, we have some other ones
so
we're
let's
going
just
through.
see, you know, Barbara, if you see...
Yeah, I can't even find my margin notes, so I'm wondering.
I mean, I think some of this is probably going to be taken care of in the other comments in this section. I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay, but one thing that I would like, since this comment's already here, what impact does the project have on the flow of water that currently exists on the site.
Well, you want to be more inclusive to suggest if it's a major rain event, what impact does the project have on the runoff from the existing site? What impact does the project have on the permeability or the drainage of the existing site? Somehow, I think Mary's trying to, or Barbara probably, you're trying to identify what's happening with the water as it enters the ground.
Isn't there another section where we talk about runoff? I'm not sure what, there's hydrology and there's runoff, and there is I think it's section O.
Actually, I think this is water quality of construction activities, contaminated groundwater encountered during construction, and then with this substantial amount of earthwork grading and remediation activities required under construction, I guess I kind of think it should go here because they're going to be they plan to bring in a great amount of dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And a great amount of dirt will change the water flow and the drainage patterns. And is that going to cause water to backflow like onto Bay Shore? Is it going to cause water to, where's the water going to go? Water is
Where's
great
the water gonna
destructive force.
Yeah.
Where is the water?
So maybe you're right. Maybe it is section H that I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
There are several places where there's water stuff, and I made a comment on this section 2 about stormwater runoff, which I think hasn't made it to, I'm not sure it's made it to Terry.
Yeah, because I asked on the bioretention areas and that type of thing, would the water flow through or would it flow around? And that's a big difference in my mind. Because, what's it flowing through? Or what happens when it flows around and creates a new channel?
There'll be erosion,
And
exposure of underlying levels.
Yep. Changes the siltation patterns in the lagoon and the bay, which is already happening. And so I do think that really is not addressed properly at all. I mean, today was a miniature example, but where you turn from Beatty left to go under the freeway and on to go under the freeway and then onto the freeway, all the dirt and dust that's accumulated there over the last several months became like a mudslide. And it was, slicker than slime going through there this morning. Huge amounts of mud on the road. And that's all by now probably drained into the Bay Area and created more siltation. So they don't talk about the flow. And I think that might have been the inspiration for your comment, because I have notes in my margins that say things like, but would it flow through or around?
Yeah.
And
I made a couple comments on this section that aren't in here even.
Yeah, some of mine are missing too, so Natalie and I went through those, but you might need to go through your notes and...
Well, I sent all my comments to Natalie earlier this week, so there are a couple comments on section H in some that I sent you that apparently didn't make it to Terry yet, even though I sent them quite a while ago originally.
or they might be with him now, right?
Yeah.
He has comments right now.
Mm-hmm.
Terry has a bunch of comments right now. Yeah. Okay, so back to H21.
What are we?
I guess I'm not quite sure where to put the comment, but I think that they need to address the flow of water both during construction and post-construction.
I wonder if they can map it or something. I don't know if there is such a thing.
I mean, right now they have sedimentation ponds out there in certain places on the soils processing, or at least they used to. You can see it clearly in the Google map, in the Google pictures. So, let's go on to the next comment that marked this one for revising. The next one is, I guess we're done with H for right now. Oh no, here's some more H down below.
No, I think what it is, it's a cross comment between the two different.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like, is that the issue is on litter. And the comment was, I think, more about what's going to be the policy for litter reduction, and then when it talks about the flow into the storm drain, is they recognize that there's litter. I think that's what the two comments were trying to get to.
Except at page 4I, 49. So
Right, because 4I is where it's the general plan policy on litter reduction.
shouldn't it just be moved?
And it might be just crossed off this one because it already says page 4I 49 policy 388 included as part of the document.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be deleted because it was added to the one above it,
Oh,
which he didn't comment on.
Okay. No, delete, strike this one? Okay.
You mean just the reference, one-line reference to the one above?
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. As long as it gets in there, I'm not emotionally attached to what section it goes in under.
Okay. H29, and this is regarding mitigation measure 4H, on 4A, B, and C. Should use a 100-year storm event after an 11-foot 8-inch rise in sea level. Using a 100-year storm event will ensure proper mitigation statements on 4H37. The mitigation should take into account subsidence for non-supported areas of the site. Mitigation should also be for the end of the project period when subsidence is more likely to occur. Terry said the DEIR is required to disclose reasonably foreseeable effects. Consider that this is requesting information based on at least two unknown variables: sea level rise and subsidence 100 years in the future. This information may not be reasonably available.
And that comment is going on the premise that sea level rise is going to happen at a point sometime 100 years in the future, rather than being a constant rise in sea level over the period of 100 years period of time.
I don't think so, but I'm kind of curious where the 11 feet 8 inches came from. I've not seen, and I read quite a bit of this stuff, I don't think I've seen any estimates that exceed 6 or 7 feet this century. Those are the high end. So I'm curious about this 11-foot 8-inch. I'm assuming that means by 2100. I'm just confused as to where that came from.
It's not in my original notes, so let's see, on page...
May have been Mary's,
29.
but I just...
Yeah. Mary might have had something.
This was in, okay.
I don't see anything offhand, but was she maybe thinking about a storm event coinciding with sea level rise?
I think she clearly is, but as I said, I haven't seen any projections of sea level rise that exceed 6 to 7 feet this century, and I think those are the projections that they're working with. I seem to remember John Sawecki saying that.
Yeah.
And you know, a 100-year flood event is not something that's going to happen after 100 years, but it's the sort of flood that is likely to happen once every 100 years.
This might have been an interpretation. This might have said 7 to 8 feet. See where it says 11-foot 8-inch? what it might have been was she might have written 7, 2, 8, and then used 2 instead of 1 for the inch. Is that possible? Or
I don't know. I mean, in the report on page 4H8, it says 55 inches or higher.
5 inches
I mean,
So,
or higher.
that'd be, I don't know, 6 feet.
Yeah, just under 6 feet.
You wanna?
yeah.
You can just change it to 6 feet instead of 11.8.
Yeah, I think we should.
Right, but although you have to take into account a 100-year storm event, if you have a high tide coupled with a runoff from a 100-year storm event, you're going to have a greater volume of water impacting the site.
Right, and that's what this is trying to get to, is saying what would be that impact. And what Terry is saying is that you can't predict. I mean, Terry's comment is that the EAT draft DIR, it's 2 unknowns, which is a 100-year event, and then...
No, 100 years in the future and
Right, well-
guidance.
Well, the original comment was a 100-year event, not 100
Right.
years in the future. He seems to have confused those two things because they're different.
Yep.
Oh, no, because it says for the end of the project period, which could be 100 years from now,
Well,
at the rate we're going. Sorry.
but I mean, I think,
Dark humor.
I think the comment is what would happen after sea level rise and a 100-year storm event at the end of the project when the project is more likely to have subsided.
Can we
Right.
just say 20 years out or something, or maybe strike that final bit of language so that it's not as confusing?
Because the flooding of the Covey, the trailer court, which currently where it used to sit on the site of the community park,
Yes.
that flooding corresponded with a high tide and excessive runoff.
Right.
And what happened is a high tide prevented runoff from reaching the bay, and water backed up, which would happen on the site also.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you just take off that last sentence, and that might make it clearer for people.
Yeah. There's still no guarantee that they could even do that.
Mitigation should be projected for the completed project. How's that?
Sure.
Because they're the ones who have mentioned all through the project a 30-year timeline. So, yeah.
So how about the mitigation should take into account subsidence for non-supported areas of the site at completion?
Yes.
Great.
Could I request that the committee get a copy of the Dave Pine conference on meeting the challenge of sea level rise in San Mateo County?
Sure.
No, that's just a notice of the event.
I was gonna announce that
Yeah.
tonight.
So there'll be a printed report based on this document or this conference, and that will have an impact, or at least that'll give you a sort of a game plan of what potentially could happen.
Supporting documentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do that? And also in this question, can we also include high tide?
Sure.
Yeah. No point in just talking about sea level rise and 100-year storm. You might as well add the trifecta.
Oh yeah, definitely. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to... Okay. 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 Do you have any more comments from... Yes. Okay. We're moving on to 4H 29 and 30.
I'm sorry.
What?
So, I'm trying to, because this is the first time I've seen this piece of paper, I'm just going through and noting which of my comments are missing. And I don't, if they are left out because we as a committee decided to leave them out and I forgot about that, then I'm cool with that.
No, we have
fine.
not decided to leave out any comments at this point.
Okay, so I guess I'll get together with Natalie vis-a-vis the missing comments. And
Is there a chance that they got sent later, like mine did, apparently? Because I had comments on Section H too, some of which are not in here, as I just mentioned.
And
So-
some might also be
in the planning comments?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Is there a way we can see what went in the planning comments bucket so that we can kind of know?
I sent out one batch so far. Did you guys get those?
I got the one on the spreadsheet. Is that the one you're referring to that you sent out about a month ago?
No, last week I sent the planning comments, and then I sent the list of definitions. I can send it again.
I might have, though.
I don't remember getting it either.
I received a list of definitions, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I don't remember getting it. That doesn't mean I didn't get it because
Yeah,
I've got like my finger in so many pots right now that it could be my fault. But I'll have to go home and look at my computer.
So at
So we
some
should
point, we
yeah.
will need to kind of do an inventory of all the comments to make sure that we have acquired them all, because I know there are so many. I don't know how you're keeping track of what we've already done and what still we're sending and everything. It's just a lot.
I think a lot of the problem was just continuity between Christine and Natalie, and I think
Yeah.
things
But Natalie's
just got,
have a good handle on it, so
yeah.
we should go back and review, make sure we've brought everything along, and then just so that we really have all our ducks in a row for all the work that we have done.
Yeah.
Okay, so for comment, we still have more to go here. So this is, the next comment is 4H 29 and 30. Mitigation measure 4H, 4A, B, and C. Improvements should be made to the site prior to issuance of a building permit. This is from Mary. Comment, it would be helpful to specify what improvements this refers to, as a building permit is required by these measures before drainage improvements can be constructed. Okay, so this is a question of what comes first, the cart or the horse, I guess.
Shouldn't there be a general drainage plan for the site before construction takes place, given that the construction is earmarked to last in excess of 30 years? So the sites that aren't being built on still have to be drained, and that drainage has to be safely collected and directed off-site.
There is a master grading plan. It is in Appendix B. I've looked at it, but I couldn't tell you if it was any good or not, or complete, or, effective. But it's there.
Does it include drainage?
It's a master grading plan. I would have to go back and look at it more specifically. I've just now cracked Appendix B, so.
So I guess that maybe the way to craft this was if a master drainage plan should be, grading and drainage plan should be in effect before, on the entire site before issuance of any building permits. Or however we can phrase that. Help here. Kima, you're the master at phrasing.
Would we say that a master drainage plan should be part of the site plan, or I don't know enough about how the order of the different plans are. Oh.
Excuse me.
I guess maybe mitigation measure 4A, B, and C should include an overall master drainage plan for the site prior to issuance, implementation of an overall master drainage plan prior to issuance of permits.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. I can't think of a better way of putting it.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one. This is 4H15. Under sea level rise, it is stated BCDC's jurisdiction within the project site includes the Brisbane Lagoon, Visitation Creek, and a 100-foot shoreline band around these figures, each of which is designated waterfront park, beach and plant, etc. BCD oversight is limited. Specify which government agency will have jurisdiction. And his comment is not clear whether the comment is suggesting the quoted statement is wrong or only if the jurisdiction is unclear. Figure 4I2 delineates BCDC's jurisdiction. What we want to know is when at that 100-foot mark where BCDC's jurisdiction ends, whose jurisdiction begins? I think that's what the question is.
Michelle, could we take a 1-minute break?
Yeah.
I'd like to go get some water,
Absolutely.
if you don't mind, and I don't want to miss this.
Let's take 5 minutes.
Okay.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sit down till I'm excused.
Okay, so we're resuming. We were on page 4H-15 about BCDC's jurisdiction, and I believe the nature of the question is, at that 100-foot mark, where their jurisdiction ends, whose jurisdiction begins for the oversight? Because I've asked that same question.
Yeah, I remember you.
Oh, that is my question.
That is your
Yeah.
question.
I remember you saying that in the meeting, Michelle. So
Yeah, so whose jurisdiction? Not clear whether the comment is suggesting the quoted statement is wrong. No, the quoted statement is not wrong. It's whose jurisdiction takes over where BCDC's jurisdiction leaves off for oversight.
You know, Michelle, that one seems a little bit ambiguous to me because you say it's limited, and the way I read it is that it's limited in the scope of what they oversee, as opposed to geographical limitation that after the 100 yards. So it wasn't clear to me by reading that comment that you meant what you just said much better in words.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like you're saying what happens at the borderline after that 100 yards, where I was thinking you were saying, well, BCDC is in charge of like wetlands and things like that, but there are certain things which they don't have jurisdiction over even within that 100 yards. That's the way I read it.
Oh, okay.
How about if you say BCDC oversight is limited in area, specify which government agencies will have jurisdiction in areas that the BCDC does not?
Right, because going back to page 4H15, my concerns were like risk assessments are only required within BCDC's jurisdiction, and then risk assessments for projects located only in the shoreline band, an area within 100 feet of the shoreline need only address risks to public access. It's about the risk assessment part. And I feel like it's really limiting if that's the only area where you're concerned about the risk assessments, because with sea level rise, there will be inundation in a lot of other areas besides just the areas that come under BCDC's jurisdiction.
Well, with sea level rise, BCDC's jurisdiction will grow.
change.
Yes, but it was, yeah, that's true. Okay, so you get the gist of what I want to know. Who else has oversight besides BCDC?
I mean, Sean makes an interesting comment. BCDC will always have oversight with sea level rise. Because there will always, I mean, what happens with sea level rise is that the shoreline moves forward, and BCDC always has jurisdiction 100 feet away from the shoreline. So BCDC's jurisdiction will change as the sea level rises.
But that begs, what is the question? What is the definition of shoreline band? Because the shoreline band is going to mutate dramatically.
It'll be fluid.
But it'll change.
It'll change.
As the shoreline changes, the band will change with it.
Right. I mean, it keeps moving that 100. If the shoreline moves 10 feet west, then the 100 feet moves 10 feet west. So I guess maybe the question is, who performs risk assessment outside of the BCDC area in anticipation of sea level rise? I mean, that might be, because I understand what you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Saying that BCDC is doing a risk assessment now, and who's planning for it 20 years from now after the sea level rises 20 feet and there's another 20,
Yeah, if you look at 4H6 diagram, and it shows Zone A, areas susceptible to 100-year flood event, and it includes all of Crocker Park, most of Crocker Park, and Lower Brisbane, and all that. And that is not, 100 feet from a quote-unquote shoreline. So, while I appreciate that the shoreline will change, it's like I would like to know who else has oversight on risk assessments, because sea level rise will affect the same areas that will be affected by the 100-year flood zones. See, because the
I don't think
100-year
so.
flood, well, the 100-year flood zones, one of the reasons they're 100-year flood zones is that water can't leave fast enough. So with sea level rise, it's going to impede water leaving from those areas. So I guess I'd like to know who else besides the Bay Conservation and Development Commission is going to have oversight for sea level rise risk assessments. I just don't feel like they're taking into the full account the full risk assessments associated with sea level rise, because it affects how water flows, the whole hydrology of the area.
So maybe the question isn't really about BCDC at all, because BCDC looks at shorelines and things like that. So maybe this was more of a drainage issue.
Well, it's under sea level rise.
Exacerbated by sea level rise. But,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm not sure that that's a BCDC issue at all. It's more like a hydrology issue. Looking at that map.
So, does this get somewhat covered under the 4H29, talking about a 100-year storm event?
I think it does, yes. If I'm understanding that correctly, that flood risk is exacerbated by sea level rise, then it goes back to...
And that's what 4H29
Right.
That's what you added to 4H29, was the idea of sea level rise and the impact of sea level rise and subsidence on the 100-year storm event.
I don't think it really does, because this case, this is talking about risk assessments are required when planning shoreline areas or designing larger shoreline projects. Okay, so a sea level rise and storms are expected, et cetera, but it only, so at this point, BCDC is only involved in the sea level rise risk assessments in this very small band. I want to know who's responsible for sea level rise risk assessments outside of this narrow band, because the sea level rise hasn't happened yet.
Well, maybe what we need to request then is a future risk assessment, so that they don't just do the risk assessment on this area that is currently within its 100 band, and then, you know, in 20 years from now or 100 years from now, when it's changed, those new areas that are then covered, we don't have, the current risk assessment is not applicable for.
Right.
We will need a new risk assessment to cover the new
Yes.
problems,
But
areas.
I don't think that involves BCDC. I think it's a different issue.
Well, oddly enough, it will be BCDC
Eventually, but it
in
isn't
20
right
years.
now.
I mean, this is truly a chicken and egg thing. So,
But
you know,
the risk assessments are in
whose
the planning.
responsibility is it for risk assessment of sea level rise outside of the current BCDC area?
Yes, thank you. That'll
That
do.
works for me.
Works for me.
And then if you get back the answer of no one, then that becomes a planning issue.
Yes.
So that may be the answer, no one is, and therefore that may be an issue. You have a question about the overall project with council as it relates to the planning process, is that somebody should be looking at this proactively, not retroactively, because it'll be too late retroactively.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, maybe some of the issues that are going on between what's here and what's not here is some of the, I may think that the way I was looking at them, some of them may be more planning of the project that becomes a conversation with council as to what you want to see as part of the project. And that may be part of this problem. So what I've asked Natalie to do is on Friday email you everything that we've done so you can see which pockets everything has fallen into.
Okay.
Because to be honest, there's not been a comment that we've sat there and said, it's not going to be in some document. And if
Okay.
there is, I truly apologize. It's not my intent.
Okay, the next one is H22, and also one of mine, unfortunately. And the comment is, Any increase in impervious surface area shall include establishment of vegetated swells, permeable pavement materials, preserve vegetation, replant with native vegetation, and appropriate measures should be evaluated and implemented where appropriate. However, on statements on 4H22 are contradictory. Paved areas would result in an increase in the amount of impervious surfaces within the project site and would increase stormwater runoff generation and flows. These statements should coincide with each other. And his comment is the statements don't really contradict each other as they are referring to different things. One is a mitigation to help offset sediments into the lagoon versus water quality impact discussion. And yet I think that they do contradict each other if you look at a holistic approach of what they're planning to do there. Because they're using one mitigation measure, they're saying they're going to do this, but then the other mitigation says they're going to do just the opposite. So how are the two going to coordinate?
What's opposite?
This is one of the, I get what Terry's saying in this
Michelle.
particular one. Yeah.
Maybe we could suggest
Oh, what Terry's saying.
Yeah, I do too. But maybe we could suggest that the wording in the DEIR be changed to read, any increase in impervious surface area shall be mitigated by establishment of vegetated swales, etc. I think they weren't very clear that they're talking about increased impervious area, and they're also talking about mitigating it in the same sentence, but it's not a very good sentence.
Yeah, well, like on H22, sedimentation would not be considered a significant impact during the post-construction and operation of project site development because most of the site would be paved or landscaped, which would stabilize soils for the long term. And then it talks about, however, the paved areas would increase the amount of impervious surfaces. And I still feel that's in contradiction with the other section where they're talking about how they're going to put all these bioswales and everything and vegetative surfaces and it's going to just be a concrete mass out there.
Excuse me.
And I don't know how to get around saying that, but that they're talking out of two sides of their mouth at the same time, because one mitigation measure says they're going to do all this planting and everything to absorb everything, and the other one says, because most of the site will be paved. And I know that they're going to pave it because that's how they're going to cap the pollutant, cap it. And that's what they're doing in the Schleich-Lock section, is they're just paving over everything, and any landscaping will be above concrete landscaping. So I don't know how to state that this is contradictory, but if we're not comfortable with this, then I will have to reword it somehow. I just really think that they are contradictory. Mitigation measures are in contradiction with each other.
Can you word it by saying that most of the vegetation will be over concrete? Is that what it's saying? Ask that.
Yes.
Is that what it's saying?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Asking if most of the vegetation that they're referring to
Won't be in the ground.
yeah, with 4C-1G, third bullet from the bottom. I'm not sure exactly where that is. H22, where's the third bullet from the bottom? It's got to be another section I was referring to. Oh, here it is. It's on page... No, not that one. Sorry. Okay, well, let's skip this one, and I'll try and clarify that later.
Run it down, Michelle.
It really is in contradiction, and it just really upset me when I was reading that. Okay, it looks like we're skipping forward now to section N, traffic. And this would be section N91 through 94.
This is another one of those ones where my comment did not come through. I agree with Terry, it's very confusing as written. My original comment referred to specifically Table 4N-25 and 4N-26. Columns should be added to show the level of service required by the Brisbane General Plan for each of the locations. I just thought it would make the table more useful to have that information included. So.
Okay. And then the next one is, so can we change that comment back to the original comment? And the next one is typos wording. Specify the particular typos would be more effective.
Yeah, we have those on another sheet of paper.
Yeah. That could just go away.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be more effective. You should just spell check the whole darn thing. Okay, and I think that brings us to the conclusion of the comments that we've had from Terry so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Glenn, you have comments that you've submitted here. Do you want to go over these?
No, these are, I apparently emailed Natalie the wrong set of comments. What I had were 3 comments on Chapter 7.
Three new comments on Chapter 7.
And I will resend those to Natalie. I apologize. And they all concerned mitigation. Chapter 7 has a big chart with a list of mitigations in it.
Yes.
And
here, let me get this out of your way.
I can just orally tell the committee what my suggested additions were.
That would be good.
And then Natalie can forward the email version when I send her the right one, and my apologies then.
So, Glenn, are you talking about section G?
Section
No, I'm talking about
7.
Chapter 7.
Oh,
Chapter 7.
Right.
Sustainability.
Uh-oh.
And I did have one amendment to my comments on the greenhouse gases in Chapter 4, which is that the San Francisco Chronicle today ran an article saying that the Muni capital improvement budget is running a $2.2 billion with a B dollar deficit. So I thought that would buttress the argument that I and other people have made that these improvements are unfunded.
Yeah.
The Caltrain part is unfunded. The Muni part is also really hurting for money. So if it's okay with you guys, I'll just ask Natalie to insert that.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. Can you do that, Natalie? Now, I sent you my greenhouse gas comments on Monday, I think it was.
Okay, I'll probably email you the specific comment to make sure I have the right one.
Okay, that'll be fine. And then on Chapter 7, I've gone through the air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and energy parts of this mitigation chart. And the suggestions I have for mitigation, additional mitigation, apply to really all 3 of those because they will reduce energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, and air pollutants. The air pollutants that they talk about here and the ones that I'm talking about are from natural gas combustion, oxides of nitrogen. So, long story short, the 3 mitigations are building commissioning. I think we ought to require that for buildings on this project. Commissioning is basically it's done by a third party, and it begins at when the blueprints are being done.
And you speak into one another, yeah.
A commissioning professional looks over the things like the furnaces and heating and electrical systems that are planned for a particular building and evaluates is this a good plan to heat the building and provide, hot water and things like that. And the advantage to this is that sometimes engineers can find things that are redundant. And what I've read about commissioning is that very often building designers are very redundant, and they include extra heat pumps and things like that. So if you get a building commissioned, somebody can review those plans and say you don't need an extra heat pump, or you don't need this big a fan, you could use a smaller fan. And I included in my comment a couple of quotes and examples with references. And it's a good way to save energy. And then the commissioning process goes all the way through when the building is done. And at that point, when the building is done, the commissioning engineer goes through it to see that all the systems are working properly, because sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's, a blockage where there's supposed to be airflow, and so the system doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So commissioning is basically just a professional review of the energy systems in a building, and everything I've read about it says it's extremely helpful. And I was on the Energy Strategy Subcommittee, and we also discussed building commissioning on that committee, so I think at least one member of the council is familiar with that. Got all that? And you'll get the written version. I wrote it all out with everything. And the second mitigation measure I suggested is, they talk about smart meters here under, I think it's under air quality. Where is it? Yeah. It's in the air quality mitigations, requires smart meters and programmable thermostats. I suggested an additional requirement, which is digital displays in the buildings for users. These are designed to work with smart meters. They're complementary to them. What they allow the occupant to do, or the management, if it's a commercial building, is to see energy use in real time. And there have been a couple of pilot studies done on how these displays affect behavior. And apparently they do. When people can see in real time how much they're using and get an idea of what appliance or what sort of use is causing it, they will actually make decisions to turn down temperatures, maybe operate things at different times of day when energy is cheaper and things like that. And they go with smart meters. They're designed to do that. So let's go whole hog and have in-home displays. I think that would be a good idea.
In building.
In building, yeah. And I'm trying to remember what was the third one. Oh my God, did I forget?
You may have mentioned in that same chapter, or that same chart on table 7-1, that the Green Building Code standard in all new construction include all machines used on project site construction. I have a note here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
On under measure 4B-4, meet Green Building Code standards in all new construction, reduce NOx related to natural gas combustion, including all machines used on site in construction, during construction. I think that's what it refers to. I just took notes.
Can I give a couple of quick things while you think about that? Is that all right?
I remembered it.
Okay, go.
The third one, and I don't know whether we can require it, but I think they should at least explore the possibility of a district heating system, which are widely used in Europe, and they apparently save energy use a lot. And, if with or without residential development, there's going to be a cluster, there will be clusters of buildings out there. And it might be better to explore sort of a central heating system that all the buildings can draw from, instead of including a separate furnace in each unit. Aside from suggesting that they look at it, I don't know if it should be required or not, but they should at least look at it. So that was the third one, and I included a little bit of documentation too.
Barbara?
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick things. I did not type out for this chapter because I found this chapter personally nauseating. More than usual. But on page 12, second to last dash, it says, results of the burrowing owl survey will be forwarded to the CDFW, and I thought we should include the city of Brisbane in that study. I mean, basically all around the city of Brisbane should be notified of everything. And maybe it would have been anyway, but I would like to see that there specifically. Because, you know, continuity must be maintained. It's at the bottom.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The other thing was on page 16, several mitigation measures. It says during designs of building greater than 100 feet tall. And I just felt like 100 foot tall is not going to catch very much. And I thought that, you know...
catch very much.
Yeah, I mean... I was thinking 50 foot tall, then the architect should consult a qualified biologist about bird strikes. Or maybe even less than 50 foot. But it just seems like the bar is set too sloppy at 100 feet.
Yeah, it's very sloppy. I think it should be more like
10 feet, no.
30 feet.
30 feet, sure. But definitely something less. I mean, Mary would, or Glenn, you guys probably know more about this issue. And what is a more reasonable height?
I'd go for 50 feet.
Okay.
Birds run into house windows sometimes, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Mary already made a comment on this one previously.
Yeah.
She did, and I think some of her comments included specific mitigation measures.
Yeah.
Right.
So...
I just wanted to make sure that it made it into here too, because I don't know if it did or not.
Right. I mean, looking at it, what that is just pulling the mitigation from previously and just recopying it.
Okay.
So what we would do is for those things that you want to add mitigation for, we would put it back into where it was original chapter.
Okay, so we'll go back into C.
Yeah.
And then my final thing was that when I shared that energy chart, a lot of wasted energy just comes from like people's boilers in their buildings. And when that boiler's still running even when there's not a demand. So there's a huge amount of energy wastage. And in terms of closing the energy gap in this country, if we engaged in cogeneration, we could greatly increase the efficiency of our buildings. And so I just wanted to say that cogeneration, I wanted them to look at cogeneration in some shape or form.
Actually, when I said district heating, those are usually cogeneration systems, meaning they generate both heat and power, but you can set them up to just generate heat. And if you have one boiler that's heating a bunch of buildings, you can keep that boiler running all the time, but you don't need a bunch of separate boilers that need to be shut on and shut off, or turned on and shut off, I mean.
Yeah, it's a similar issue, connected issue.
Yeah.
So is that similar to the system that's in downtown San Francisco, PG&E's steam generation?
I don't know much about it, but maybe.
You know, you see all those manholes that the grates where steam is being off.
Probably,
gassed?
yeah. Yeah, so I think American cities used to use district heating systems too. So there may be an old one. I'm not personally familiar with it, but it could be.
I just have a couple of things here, and I haven't gone through this section as thoroughly as I want, but in this first page on 7-5, there's two things, and that is they talk about require the use of electricity-powered landscape equipment through CCNRs.
Oh, yeah.
Right, we already have that note.
You have that note?
Yes.
Good. And also about who's going to provide the free transit passes? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Those will send, I got CCNRs and... I don't see the transit passes. Okay.
Okay, because one of the mitigation measures is to provide free transit passes, and nothing's free, so who's going to provide the transit passes? It appears twice here under air quality and greenhouse gas emissions.
Mhm.
So who will be paying for those?
Yeah, you're right, Michelle. That needs to be specified so we don't get to the end and everybody's like,
We get to the end and it turns out the city of Brisbane's going to provide them. Not. So, okay. Do we have anything else on this chapter, or we should move on and
What else do we need to do?
we have to approve the minutes
Oh, and adjourn.
and review the schedule, and then also adjourn. Yeah.
Do we need
And-
to discuss this at all?
Yes,
We
I
may
would.
not need to, but...
Well, I'd like to at least make an announcement about it. So do you want to do that, Glenn?
Sure. So you all have a copy of just a page advertising a conference called Meeting the Challenge of Sea Level Rise in San Mateo County. I got this, I think I got it from Jackie Spears' office, but I don't remember where. This is happening on Monday, the 9th of December, from 8 in the morning until 12:30. The address is on the flyer. Before the meeting, I did print out just for myself a copy of the draft program, and I can hit a couple of high points. There are going to be opening talks by Spear Assembly Member Rich Gordon and Dave Pine. Keynote speaker is a guy named John Englander, who's an oceanographer, written a book called High Tide on Main Street, which just sort of lays out the sea level rise issue. And then from 9:45 to 10:05, projected impact of sea level rise on San Mateo County. And that will be presented by Will Travis, who's the former executive director of the BCDC. And then there will be panels beginning at 10:20. Speakers include the present BCDC executive director, the executive director of the California State Coastal Conservancy, who I guess is not confirmed, chief of planning from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and a regional risk analysis guy from FEMA. And then there's a panel on local initiatives and action, and then it concludes with policy developments at the federal, state, and local levels. So I also sent a copy of the announcement to Mary Gutekunst and suggested that somebody from the CAG might like to be there, because there will be some officials there, and I think maybe even just mentioning the fact that we have this landfill right next to the rising water might open their eyes to the fact that it's even there. And it might be interesting to hear whether there's any money for studies, maybe for mitigation. And so I hope somebody from our committee or CAG, the BB CAG, can go. I might go, but I'm not going to go at 8 o'clock. If I do go, it'll probably be around 9:30 in the morning.
Is there a fee, Glenn?
It doesn't say that. I think this is a public, there was nothing about a fee in anything that I read about it.
Yeah.
It looks really interesting.
It'd be great if you could attend, if anybody could attend. It's hard for me because it's Monday morning during a work day.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's hard for me too because
Yeah.
it's the last week of class, but I will try. I mean,
okay,
Natalie will go.
that would be really good.
that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. I think that would really be good to have the city go.
Mm. Excellent. And then there's this other thing that was handed out. I'm not sure what this is.
That was from me. That's just a copy of the article that talks about the $2.2 billion muni budget shortfall.
Excellent. So this article should be included with our, I think that this relates directly.
I asked Natalie to include the $2.2 billion figure in my comment. Do we need to include the whole article with it?
Probably not, unless you think that we need it for backup. I mean,
What we probably should do is just include the 2.2 and then cite it,
Okay.
Yeah.
cite the article.
So Natalie has the link, and that was why I emailed it to you, is just so you
Yeah.
would have the link and the date.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have meetings scheduled for December 4th, which will be not in this room. It will be in a conference room somewhere else in the building.
Right, it'll either be in the large conference
Right.
room or upstairs in the Parks and Recreation,
And then December 11th.
which will be here.
Okay. December 11th is our quote-unquote regular meeting. Then our next regular scheduled meeting in January would be our regular scheduled meeting, which is the third Wednesday in January. What date is that, Stuart?
I thought it was the second Wednesday.
Oh, second Wednesday, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. 11, 18, 25, 32, 1, January 8th.
January 8th.
So I won't be here for that meeting.
I won't
Okay.
be here for that meeting.
Is there anybody else who's not going to be here for that meeting? Because we could change it to a different
For which
day.
one?
I won't be here in
January
January.
8th. Oh, you won't be here for the whole month,
Whole
right?
month.
I'll be back later in the month, but
22nd? 15?
I don't think I've got a calendar.
Okay. So let's stay with January 8th for now, subject to change on our December 11th meeting. Okay. And then after December, on our December 11th meeting on the agenda, we'll discuss what we still have to do and how we're going to get it done before the January 24th deadline, and hopefully have a recap of all of the stuff we've done so far. And I'm hoping that we have all of our comments back from Terry, all of the submitted comments to date back from Terry Rivas plotted by then. Do you think that we can do that?
Is that reasonable?
Have them in time to review for the December 11th meeting?
I hope to.
Okay. And I'd like to review as much as we can on December 4th, because in any questions that we have for people who may not be here, we can cover on December 11th. Okay. And I just, again, have to publicly say how much I admire my colleagues in the open space and ecology for sticking with this. This has been a bear. But there's nobody I'd rather be working with than you guys.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
Okay, so let's go on to the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes for November 6th? And if not, is there a move to...
Hold on a second.
Okay.
November 6th or November 13th?
Well, we have two. I was going to do them one at a time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The 6th first.
So, sorry to sidetrack everybody. That means on the 11th we have to do P and O and B and K and gross inducements.
In terms of reviewing the comments?
Yeah.
I'm hoping we're going to review a lot of them on the 4th.
Okay.
And then whatever we don't have done by the 4th, we'll do on the 11th.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
I feel better about that.
Yeah. And, okay.
Are we supposed to approve the minutes for November 6th also?
Yeah, I said November 6th first, and then we'll do November 13th.
Okay.
So any changes to November 6th? No, we didn't.
Did your thing about the minutes get fixed, Michelle?
Did my thing about the minutes.
On the 6th, the watch meeting, especially at minutes 14, 34, and 42?
Yes, it did.
Did it get fixed?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then on the 13th, there are a couple of spelling errors on the back. Request for more detailed figures, and Brisbane is not only wrongly characterized as urban, but misspelled.
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. Happens. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for any changes to either set of minutes?
You want to approve them jointly?
Yeah, might as well.
Did my, on the 6th, did my thing with the, about Chapter 5 and the broken water mains, did that get fixed?
Yeah.
I'm still looking at my old printout here.
Saw it somewhere.
Okay.
Irrigation lines, yeah.
Yeah.
Mitigation of broken irrigation lines should be considered.
Yeah.
An alarm system, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm looking at the old copy.
Okay.
Oh, there's a new copy.
So
Wow.
there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other business?
Mhm.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More papers. I've gotten so many papers now, I've taken to having to use a bag to carry all of that.